I'm enjoying the new backdrop, Michael. It's a nice backdrop you got there.
I do like that backdrop. That's a very
Yeah.
nice one.
Yes, I see Dal's got his flag accoutrement decorating about.
We're renovating, so
Well, nothing
we're
wrong
always renovating. So
There's nothing wrong
I had
with
to
renovating
put
in the
something up.
shadow of the red, white, and blue. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. I'm one of your hosts, Frank Range Report Johnson. Well, you can call me Vice President Putin. To my right is Michael Marshall, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation. And joining us this week from New York is Dal Grimm. He's a frequent guest
Hi.
here on the show, becoming more and more of a regular. We've got a couple of absentees this weekend as Michael Vasquez, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, is currently at Freedom Fest 2024 in the great state of Nevada. And
On the ground.
He's on the ground. We got a little satellite dish strapped to his ass, and he's running around out there in the desert, covering Freedom Fest. So, guys, it's been some kind of week.
Oh.
It has.
We went from dead man walking to live man talking, and I don't know.
Big boy interview.
He had the big boy interview this weekend. I'm glad to know that he's that Putin is president of the Ukraine. That's a new development.
And
So
Trump is the first black female vice president.
Yeah. What an eventful week. I sat, everybody in the house here was watching that press conference the other night.
Yeah.
And they were all watching it in the living room. I just wanted to, again, I try to be objective with a lot of this stuff because I don't want to sit there watching things. I want to absorb it in a different way. So what I did is I just had the audio on. I didn't want to watch body movement and I didn't want to see mannerisms or anything. So I had my headphones on in the kitchen while everyone was watching it inside. I just wanted to listen to the verbiage because if we remember back to the Kennedy-Nixon debate in 1960, 75% of the people that listened to that debate on the radio said that Nixon won, but 75% of the people that watched the debate on television said that Kennedy won. And it's all about presentation. So keeping that in mind, I just wanted to listen to the audio of it. I wanted to listen to the audio version of it and see if I could pick up on certain keys. And we were laughing after. It was like, well, we should have had a drinking game set up. Anytime Joe Biden says, anyway, everybody would have to take a shot.
Your liver would have had to been very fortified.
Yeah. I mean, look, for all intents and purposes, he did fairly well at that presser, but he still didn't exactly come out of there unscathed. He didn't do much to stir up his crumbling foundation.
No.
Now people are starting to see that he's more likely to fall apart than he is to hold up. So I don't know. Did he buy himself a little bit of favor? I don't know. The next day you got George Clooney out there saying he should step aside, like that matters. A couple of more Democrat Congress people have come out, and today Ashley Judd said he should step aside. So
Hakeem Jeffries is refusing to endorse him
outright. Yeah, he's refusing to endorse him outright. I mean, he's basically following the default for the good of the party. I'll do whatever, but I have read my reservations.
Yeah. And his donations from big donors, the ones that really keep his campaign alive, those have pretty much dried up.
Well, from what I gather, he still has. I was listening to the news in the car on the way back here tonight. He's got $100 million war chest yet that has been donated into the cause, and it said that he can't do anything to transfer those finances to a Harris campaign until and unless it comes after the convention.
Correct.
There's some sort of bylaw that says he can't do it. So $100 million. I mean, that's Hunter Biden money right there. I mean, that's nice money to sneeze at. He might just be trying to figure out how to finagle most of that money into their private coffers before he, ducks out. Because if they follow the law, he won't be able to profit. The profit line stops now for the Biden family.
Yeah.
So he might be just trying to figure out, okay, how do we clean up this 100 million because we know Kamala's not going to beat Trump. Throwing $100 million into a campaign that's not going to do anything isn't going to do anything. So they might just be trying to figure out how to finesse that money out of the campaign and into their own pocket before he calls it quits, because he knows there ain't going to be no more extortion checks coming because he's not going to have the power.
Yeah. Now that 100 million is for him specifically, right? That's not donated to the DNC, so they can't.
It's donated to his campaign.
Right. That's the Joe Biden Political Action Committee.
Right.
Right.
So that's why the specific earmark, because if it was donated to the DNC in general, they wouldn't have an issue with moving money from one campaign to another.
Right. And the DNC,
but it was specific to his campaign. But if there is no campaign, where does the money go? He doesn't just get to keep it. You always have these politicians that don't spend all their war chest. Well, what happens to that money? They take their Joe Schmo campaign fund, turn it into the Joe Schmo Political Action Committee. The campaign donates the money to the Political Action Committee, and then the PAC is able to use the money for whatever they want to without the oversight of the government.
Right.
It falls outside of the Board of Elections.
As long as it's not used for something to create profit.
Right.
But we can use it for transportation. We could use it for housing. We could use it for security. We could use it for anything that's related to the business of the former candidate, making appearances and everything else. So you're basically paying all your own bills with it.
And actually, as a PAC, if Biden were to drop out of the race, the PAC can then turn around and use that for whoever does step up and start running.
Right. They could use it for an ad buy.
Tied to a single candidate.
Yeah.
Right. They'd have to turn around and donate that to the DNC.
No, they could donate it directly to any candidate.
Yeah, but isn't there that $5,200 limit?
No,
not under a PAC.
Yeah, that's the shady part. That's why there was a big talk a while ago to get rid of PACs entirely, because the issue was that they don't fall under the same category.
Can actually use those campaign funds just like they would for Biden to run ads or whatever else.
Well, I guess
they aren't directly donating, but they're using it to pay bills and so forth.
Well, this is a byproduct of McCain-Feingold, then.
Yes.
Nah, well, what are you going to do? You just know that money's going to wind up in somebody's pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Some stripper's kid is going to college.
Now, Newsweek yesterday came out and said that voters are leaning towards using the 25th Amendment to remove the president. It's not likely to be done because they will want to, unless Biden really shows some real huge cognitive decline or has a stroke or something like that, I don't see them using 25th. Because that will look like they are stabbing him in the back.
Yeah, it'll look like a matter of convenience and not a matter of cause.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't see that happening, but there are calls for it.
Yeah, especially amongst the donor class.
Sources.
Donor class is one. Some of the Senate is another. Some members of the House are calling for it. It doesn't look good, but I think in the long run, their best chance is still to keep Biden at the forefront of the ticket because when they do the internal polling, everybody else is doing poorly. There is no chance of victory if they try to substitute somebody else.
It's essentially too late in the game for anybody
Right.
to get enough clout.
Right. Well, at 5 o'clock this morning, driving back, or 5 o'clock this afternoon, driving back, they said that Biden said that if his staff tells him that there's no chance, he'll reconsider the run.
Oh, before it was just God. It would take an act of God.
Now it's his chief staff. So you're talking about his wife, press secretary.
Now let's get back to that aspect of it. Okay, and back to the interview. If you listen to that interview, Biden really seemed like he was completely out of touch with the way the election is going. He seemed to believe that he was leading in a lot of the polls and a lot of the polling. And I think his inner circle is feeding him a bunch of lines.
Well,
I think they're giving him a lot of positive affirmation. They're saying, "Hey, you're still doing a good job," and he's interpreting that as, "Well, I'm still viable." In his own mind, he's convinced himself that there's nobody else; it's just him. And they continuously affirm it to try and keep him active. Because if they break his will, think about it. If they cause him to go into a funk or a depression, and he begins to doubt himself, then he really falls apart. Like, he's bad enough now, but if he goes into a funk or any kind of depression, he's done. Like, done. And they won't have a choice but to do something to him or for him to try and help him remove himself quietly so that something else will happen.
Well,
quietly in the sense that it will be a massive emergency, and they're going to have to scramble to replace him, and it'll look justified because it's an emergency.
Well,
right.
we were sitting around, like I said, everybody in the house was watching last night, and I was in the kitchen listening, and I was kind of hedging my bets that he would have a stroke right there. Not a real stroke, mind you, but hand up to the head. Oh my God, I don't feel good, and make a feign a pass out, and and then that was his ticket out. That was his ticket out. I was thought about the movie. Have you ever seen the movie Dave?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, like that.
Kevin Kline, the president of the the real president of the United States, is stricken with a stroke while having an affair with a prostitute, and they hire a lookalike, a celebrity impersonator, to come in and make believe it's him while they're trying to figure out what to do with the immobilized president. And before you know it, the guy starts realizing, hey, I can actually start. People think I'm really him. I can start doing some stuff. So he starts running the country, but they figure out how to. They tell him, well, the president did a whole bunch of illegal stuff, and if we try to prosecute him and they think you're him, it's you who's going to go to jail.
Yep.
So he makes believe he has a stroke so he can get out again.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, this is exactly like that movie.
Yeah.
But the stroke didn't happen.
So here's some of the latest polling. And this is from the 12th. Okay. And this is actually helped Trump recover a little bit. He was down to 2.7 points. He's back up to 2.9. And they're showing NPR on a Trump Biden ticket only. Nobody else. They're showing Biden up by 2. On the 5-way, they're showing Trump up by 1. They show Harris is winning by 1. And this is all NPR. They show Newsom could win by 2, and Whitmer would be a tie. Now, Rasmussen shows Trump up by 6, both in the 2-way and the 5-way. Am Greatness and Soar shows Trump up by 2 in both 5-way and 2-way. And Am Greatness shows Trump up by 1 against Harris. So, based on this polling, actually, it's showing that on some polls, it's showing Harris is doing better than Biden as far as having a chance to beat Trump. And other polling shows that they're doing about even. And it's showing that Newsom has a shot too. So
Well,
it is possible that they may try to run that route.
all right, well,
They're polling it.
all right. Well, of the three, Harris, Whitmer, and oil slick boy out there in California, the only one of them that has a national profile is Harris.
Right.
Okay. Outside of their respective states, nobody knows Newsom and nobody knows Whitmer. So how could you possibly have them even included in a poll? If I went to Alabama and asked somebody to tell me about Gretchen Whitmer, nobody'd be able to tell me about Gretchen Whitmer.
Right.
Or what's his face out there in California, but they would know who Harris is. Harris has now got the name recognition for 50 states where nobody knows those other two. So those other polls were, Whitmer is doing great against this. No, she's not. They went to Whitmer's state. They went to Whitmer's state and interviewed her constituents to get a poll. They went to California to get a poll on Newsom. They didn't go to Utah and ask people in Utah what's going on.
Newsom would be a little more publicly recognized, but it wouldn't be for good reasons.
No.
Anybody that knows of Newsom only knows that he basically put California in the crapper.
Right. And as far as Whitmer goes, all they need to do is run one commercial of her press conference where she came out and said that you're not allowed to buy seeds or soil to grow your own vegetables during COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. You couldn't do that, but you could buy alcohol. You could buy taxable goods during COVID, but you couldn't buy non-taxable goods during COVID. Anything that was in the market for self-sufficiency, which you could say, well, if I get this, I don't have to put on 16 masks and get 14 shots and try to go to the stores that are closed and stand on a line 6 feet apart from everybody. So I'm going to grow my own tomatoes, my own cucumbers, my own eggplants, whatever. I'm going to get a couple of my own chickens. I'm going to produce my own eggs. They outlawed domestic farming in her state. She made it impossible for people to become self-sufficient. That's the only question that they have to, that's the only commercial they would have to run against her. They said, you want a president that as soon as she had a little bit of power, lock you in your friggin' house?
Right.
Told you to starve to death?
Yeah. People wouldn't stand for that, I don't think. And they wouldn't stand for the latest thing that she did. They could run that ad, and then they could right after that run the other ad that just showed her saying that you cannot recount votes based on suspected fraud or whatever that is, like the shenanigans. So if you suspect shenanigans, you're like, no, recounts are not a thing. That's not grounds for a recount.
Grace is saying Whitmer faced a lot of backlash during the lockdowns. Yeah, it's true. She faced a lot of backlash during the lockdowns, and it was admitted that it was everything that they did was the wrong thing to do. But she's never issued an apology.
No,
to any of them, to the million people in her state that were affected by her totalitarian regime. She never had any apology from her, on what they did. None of these lockdown candidates did. Newsom. Hey, oil guy, where's the $3 billion for homeless? Where'd that go? That you now have 8 times the amount of homeless people you did than 4 years ago.
Right.
You want to California the whole United States? No.
Yeah, and that would be his greatest detriment. That would be one of the reasons why he would not perform well in an election.
California is losing some people faster than New York is.
And remember, Newsom also did the shutdowns for everything but his vineyard.
Yep.
He was able to cash
And-
in on his vineyard while the other vineyards went under.
And implemented the $20 an hour minimum wage for all restaurants except for his buddies and his.
Right, which is basically economically drained the entire state.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that.
Here's the thing: you got these ones. Then you got Pritzker coming in. Okay, number one, nobody is going to elect somebody who looks like Howard Taft's heavier brother. I hate to say it, but the man is 450 pounds. Yep. Okay, he's a tyrant of the worst degree. Okay, I don't know how the hell he's sitting governor now, except the fact that he's a billionaire. He's the wealthiest governor in America. He has a personal fortune in the billions, so he's able to buy as much ad time as he wants, buy as many votes as he wants. But that ain't going to make it across the. That's not going to make it across the Great Plains.
Right.
He'll never be, a spotlight guy. He's bigger than the spotlight. Whitmer doesn't have the kind of presence to garner any sort of movement like Obama did. What's his face? I mean, listen, you got California guy out there. They put him in the seat. Donald Trump's got a secret weapon right there. He runs one ad and puts his son's girlfriend on the stage, Kimberly Guilfoyle, and says, "Oh, that other guy running for president, that he always complains about how Donald Trump did this and Donald Trump did this. Let me tell you a little something about what happened when we were married."
Yeah.
She'll bury him.
And
she'd bury him in an ad.
And well, let's get back to the interview. And if we go back to the interview, Biden just, like I said, seemed really out of touch. And that was what was really brought up on both sides, was just how out of touch he is with what's going on with the election. He didn't ease any concerns. Okay. If anything, his grasp of reality is really in question. And that's what's a big takeaway from the interview that I got.
Yeah.
No, I got away. I went back and watched a little bit of the interview, of that press conference after I listened to it, because I wanted to see if the image that I had in my head matched what I heard
right
at the time I was hearing it. And you could hear, as somebody who's known a lot of people who've had what they call sundowners.
Yeah.
Which is a form of, dementia.
Mm-hmm.
As they start winding down, their body winds down too, and they start slowing their speech. Their voice gets deeper, and their body posture starts getting deeper. So you see, he comes out, he's standing straight up. By the end of that whole thing, he's slumped down on top of the thing, elbows on the podium, and he's talking very low. He doesn't have a lot of volume. He's getting close to the microphone. He's talking at a very slow rate of speed. He's parsing his words. You can see he's trying to find his words before he says them. So this was, if you just heard it. And then they had a guy in CNN said, this guy's one of the top neurologists in the country. He said, I don't have to examine this guy. He goes, I could tell from a mile away that he's got dementia. He's had early onset dementia. And he rattled off all the symptoms.
Yeah.
Right after it. There's some things, no matter how much vitamin B they give, or Adderall they give this guy, there's some things you're not going to be able to hide.
And the crazy part is that a lot of us that had experience with people that have dementia saw the signs as early as 2020.
Yeah.
And we're like, look, he's not going to make it. He's going to go. I mean, Mike Voss for I don't know, a good solid year was saying he won't make it through his first year. He's gonna make it to maybe the end of 2021, and they're gonna have to put Kamala in, because if they don't, he's just gonna pass out on the
Well,
press
I
conference.
predicted that they're going to wait until after the midterm elections, because they waited until after the midterm elections, then Kamala could run for re-election 2 times.
Right.
Okay, if they did it prior to the midterms, she would only be eligible to run for re-election 1 time.
Right.
Okay, so strategy-wise, their best route was to wait until after the midterms.
Now, let's just keep in mind one thing.
But I don't think they've got enough support for Kamala. I think that's why they didn't do it.
It's too late.
Well, look, they hired her as a DEI as an insurance policy. She has no gravitas. She's got no experience. She's got no ability to do anything. Everything that she's put in charge of, she goes down and dances in front of it, and then that makes it all better. And then she
cackles.
And dances and cackles. But you can't say that she cackles, because that's sexist. We don't. If you don't like the way somebody laughs, it's sexist. You know. But here's the thing about, we got to remember about Biden. Even though he's got this decline going on, and this is something about a lot of people with dementia that people don't realize. Dementia is a prison cell. The person is still in there.
Yeah.
Okay? The person is still in that mind. They're just getting trapped. They're getting blocked off, but the person is there. The ideas are there. The soul of that person and everything that person is, their ideology, everything is in there. So when we look at the state of America right now and how screwed up everything is, let's not be so quick to base it on and blame it on Joe's dementia. No, this wasn't Joe's dementia that got us where we are. This is Joe's ideology that got us where we are.
Right.
His dementia is only a symptom of his personality. It's only showing his personality. It's got nothing to do with how he thinks. You know, or excuse me, nothing to do with what he thinks, just how he thinks. He's going to arrive to the same conclusions regardless of how long it takes him. He's going to have the same ideology. He's going to push the same buttons regardless of how screwed up his mind makes his physical, because that's all it is it's going to be a projection.
Right.
He's projecting what the dementia is doing to him, but it hasn't changed who he is. No. He's still a narcissistic, opportunist criminal who's using this ideology to help destroy America based on what Barack Obama said in 2008. We're going to fundamentally transform the United States of America. This is just a continuation of that policy. That's all it is.
And that's one of the
good majority of this whole presidency has been a continuation of the Obama presidency.
Right. I just don't want to see people giving Biden the brush off for saying, oh, well, it's not really, in 5 years. Well, it's not really his fault that everything got fucked up beyond recognition. He had dementia. No, all of these policies were put in place before anybody could point to the dementia symptoms other than a little bit of slowing down, which you expect from an 80-year-old man. You expect from an 80-year-old man. You expect that. But it wasn't the dementia that put us where it is. It was his ideology that put us where. So nobody should ever give this man a free pass.
No.
That's why the current tact is right now. You're seeing it a lot pop up where they're trying to garner sympathy. And they're like, look at this old man. He's broken now, and he's not really doing very well. And Sean Farash actually put out a video on Twitter that was really good. And he's like, no, this man does not deserve your sympathy. Because for the last 8 years, he's been working nonstop with the previous administration prior to Trump to continue the very policies that have put us where we are.
And that does not deserve every time there is trouble. You find Barack Obama all of a sudden showing up.
Right. So no, he doesn't. When he was being elected in 2020 and elected, right? Yeah, as a steward as opposed to a president. When that whole thing was going on, one of the things that I mentioned on Twitter was that, if anybody else had done this to their grandfather, they would be considered abusing their elders, right? But at the same time, Joe wanted this.
Yeah.
He wanted the power because he wanted to be able to continue Obama's legacy.
He's been running for president since 1982.
Yeah. Yeah, but Obama was supposed to be the golden boy that carried it all home. And I don't think Biden wanted that. I think he wanted to be at the head of that.
Well, he
Why
wanted
would-
to be. Well,
why
Joe,
would he?
No, he was a star football player, so
And
he wanted to make the final touchdown.
Why
Jill
would
actually
he?
brings up, or I mean, Grace actually brings up a good point here. That she thinks that Jill is running the country.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think that if nothing else, Jill is at least a mouthpiece on a lot of this, and she very well could be.
I made the comment the other day that Joe sits behind the Resolute desk when there's a camera on. But when the camera's off and he's napping on the couch, it's Jill that's answering the phones and relaying the message and making policy decisions.
Meanwhile, we're sitting here, and lovely Jan has just been sitting here so quiet. And she has
no audio,
microphone.
Jan.
She has no audio. Now, one day she's been quiet.
Can you hear me now?
Now we
we
can hear
can.
you now.
Okay, that's why.
I keep looking down over at my screen. I'm like, when is Jan going to pipe up? What's going on with her?
Well, first off, hi everybody. Sorry,
Hi, Jan.
and I'm very proud of you for starting off the show with a topic. With what Grace just said, I saw an article recently. It was earlier today, and it showed Jill behind the desk at the Oval Office with a big notebook. In the article, it states that behind the scenes, Biden's sleeping at least 16 hours a day right now. And this is coming from people within the White House.
Yeah.
Was that? Well, hold on. Was it definitely the Resolute desk? Because there's a picture of her just prior to the G7 summit in 2022, 23. There was a G7 summit that was a couple of years ago where she was actually studying for the G7 summit policy for the United States so that she could accompany Joe to the G7 summit and kind of guide him around.
Yeah, well, that may have been the picture, but like I said, the article stated from inside the White House sources that he's sleeping up to 16 hours a day. So who's running the country? That's a great question. Why is Jill and Hunter sitting in on meetings that they don't have the security clearance to be sitting in on those meetings?
Right.
These are questions that the public should be asking.
Well, they're saying that Hunter does not have access to anything that's requires a clearance. That he's not in any meeting where they talk about anything with clearances, but he's in meetings. Well, what other do you talk about as president of the United States other than, are you going to stop every time you come across a sensitive topic and say, hey, listen, cokehead, step outside for a minute? Okay, bring him back in. All right, let him go. Bring him back in. That's not how it works.
No, my guess is that he's starting to not be able to recognize or listen to anybody that's on his staff. He's starting to forget faces, probably, because one of the things that happens is you start seeing with dementia, you start seeing only the people that you recognize from long-term memory. And so he's probably not listening to anybody else but Jill and Hunter. So he has to be in the room. Otherwise, he's not going to hear anything that's going on. It's just going to go right over his head.
I can attest that that's true.
Overall, I think that these interview and his big boy presser have shown he's declining, and then and then of course, I guess because he had his gaffes yesterday, as they will call them, and his presser, he had an impromptu meeting today at a restaurant, Now, how impromptu was this meeting when everybody was dressed?
That wasn't
and
impromptu.
campaign stuff. That was, and within the first so many seconds, what did he do? Walked up to the children.
Yep. Yeah, he's trying. Since Trump had that literally very organic grassroots deal with a child at a restaurant, they have been trying to duplicate that, and they have not done it yet.
That's because Joe Biden's so damn creepy around the kids. Should be that way with adults. All right, next subject, guys. We got 35 minutes for this one too. You wanted to get more into, go more in depth into the SCOTUS immunity ruling, Michael.
Yeah, I do. And basically what the Supreme Court came out with is that there are 3 levels of presidential immunity.
Right.
Based upon what is being talked about. One is absolute privilege. Okay, mean that there's nothing anybody could do. And that is based upon if the president is acting in his official capacity, that he cannot be held accountable for them, for those actions. Okay, regardless of whether they're illegal, immoral, or whatever. Okay, provided that he was acting within the confines of his office. Now, where I take pause with that a little bit, okay, is this has to be within the realm of the office that is in the Constitution of the United States, i.e., how the office of the president is described and the powers that are enumerated under Article 2 of the Constitution. Any variance beyond that would not qualify. Only things that are directly attributed as a power of the president would be technically an official act. If it's outside the Constitution, then it can't be classified as an official act because he's acting beyond his power. So, under that premise, yes, if he's acting within his official capacity as defined under Article 2, then he needs to have complete absolute immunity. And then they go on and prescribe what is called presumptive immunity. And basically that means, or presumptive privilege. And that protects presidential communications and stuff along those lines. And while he is in office, acts that he carries out for the nation, even though they might not necessarily be as a part of his office, he should receive presumptive immunity on it, i.e., given the benefit of the doubt, unless there is very substantial evidence that he acted in a manner that was contrary to law. Okay, and contrary and detrimental to the United States. And to that extent, yes, I can agree with that as well. Okay. There are a lot of things in there that a president will do, i.e., side deals and so forth with various nations and so forth. Even though they aren't official because they aren't treaties, they are still agreements between world leaders. Okay, leader of one country and leader of another country. And these agreements go on all the time. And that's how, honestly, they circumvent the treaty clause of the Constitution. Now, any agreement with another nation should rightly be clarified as a treaty and should have to receive the endorsement of the Senate. Okay, regardless whether what that agreement is, unless they are saying, okay, we're going to go to the UN, you support me, you support the United States on this vote, and then we'll support you for a vote of your. Okay, that type of agreement, yeah, that wouldn't necessarily require a treaty, but a trade agreement where we are agreeing to certain trade requirements
Would a
between nations,
arms
that
sales
would be a treaty. That's not an agreement.
would arms sales count for that?
Yes.
Okay, so like when Trump went to Saudi Arabia and set up that arms deal for them to buy military hardware from us, that would have had to have been a treaty,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes. That should have been done under the treaty clause of the United States. Okay. In fact, Crossfire Hurricane is another one. The Iran Contra affair, where they had those arms back under Reagan. There's a lot of times throughout history where presidents have skirted the treaty clause by doing these backdoor agreements.
Yeah.
Okay. And the North American Free Trade Agreement. Okay. That
Was
should
one.
have been a treaty, not an agreement. Okay. Those types of things shouldn't be allowed. And as far as I'm concerned, they are in violation of the Constitution and of federal law. But I digress.
It's relevant digression.
Right. Now, if Trump were to make an agreement that actually hurt the United States and was also in violation of the law, then he loses that presumptive innocence.
Right.
Okay. And then they classified one other type of, and I don't remember exactly what it was called.
Somebody talk dead air.
Oh, and when he is acting in an unofficial capacity, there is no immunity.
Right.
Okay. So if he's acting outside of his presidential office, and that could be something along the lines of the hush money deal.
Right.
Okay.
And then,
if he was paying hush money to keep something quiet that he didn't want somebody to know and trying to divert attention away from some other nefarious act that he had done, then that would receive no immunity.
or a quid pro quo to get their
Right.
son out of an investigation.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so on those three levels, I do, for the most part, agree with the SCOTUS decision. However, there are certain acts where that could be deemed as official that really shouldn't be based on this decision.
The decision basically raises the bar for the test to try and determine the burden of proof, where it lay.
Right.
So the burden of proof would be that you have to prove, one, that this was an act of a specific type of these three. So you have to first ascertain that it is the fact that this is one of the three. Then you have to ascertain whether you whether it was detrimental to the United States enough to pursue, say, impeachment and then conviction and then follow
Now-
up with criminal charges.
Even under absolute immunity, okay, let's say the president acting within his powers under Article 2 did do something and the House decided they wanted to impeach him for it because they thought that it was detrimental enough to the country as
Yeah.
a whole, that it was not in the best interest of the country. Okay, the president's acting within his official powers, but he did something that wasn't good for the country.
Mhm.
The House would have the ability to impeach him. He would not have immunity under that. He'd have immunity from prosecution, but no immunity for
Right.
impeachment.
Yep. So they could still impeach him and remove him from office, but they couldn't follow up with criminal charges to try
Right.
him and
And
convict
yet-
him criminally.
Remember, also, all of these immunity, or everything we're talking about with immunity, is only respect to criminal charges.
Right.
Correct.
It's nothing to do with civil, because you can have
There
a
are
president-
some civil that he would be immune for as well.
possibly, but
Okay,
if
he
you-
would if he was doing something in his official capacity as president. Okay, and under the confines of Article 2, he would receive absolute immunity, even civilly, for that. Okay, and he would receive presumptive immunity for doing official acts as president.
Well, let's look for a second at one of the most heinous examples of something that was done under a president's official capacity that was absolutely horrific, and that was the Japanese internment camps.
Mhm.
Now, let's also remember, too, it wasn't only the Japanese that suffered under the internment camps. Do you know
Right.
that there were Irish internment camps?
There's
Excuse me,
also German.
Italian and German internment camps?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was German and Italian. I know because I have relatives that were in an Italian one. I don't know why I said Irish. But
The IRA.
yeah, but FDR, that was one of the most horrific things that you could do to American citizens, deny their freedom for over 5 years and put them in a basically a labor camp.
Yeah.
For 5 years, stripped away all of their civil rights and their dignity as American-born people, and
Yep.
put them in there. If somebody were to do that today through the guise of FEMA, like when the next time the fishbowl in Louisiana gets flooded out, and they decide that they're going to start doing that kind of crap like that. You mean to tell me if a president says we're going to, oh, it's a time of war, I need to incarcerate all of these people and not provide them with, their due process. He's not going to be immune from that.
The president would be, the United States would not be.
Not on civilly.
The president would not be.
Yeah.
The United States would be.
Well, then the Supreme Court has got some shit they got to straighten out, because I don't think any person on the face of this planet, or especially in America, if you deny an American of their civil rights and their due process.
Now the thing
give a
is, you
I
would
don't
have
care what
to
your capacity
determine
is.
whether or not that is actually an official act of the office of the presidency.
But even if it's an official act, if you are committing a crime,
No, I'm
you're
talking about
basically
as
saying-
far as the level of immunity.
right. But what I'm saying is, I don't see how denying somebody their civil rights is ever going to be something that can be regarded as official. Because if you can make,
And-
if somebody
and
can make an
that's
official
the case.
decision,
Okay, if it's not an official act, then he has no immunity.
right? But if they're saying, well, this is an official act, and they've determined that it's an official act, and that makes it so that he's not responsible, or she's not responsible, at least to be held civilly accountable for what they did, then none of us have rights.
It would be a test case.
The
It would-
courts are basically saying this one person
Right.
is able to strip the rights away of as many people as they want to. And even though we can't put them in jail, all right, we're not gonna be able to let you put them in jail because it's his official capacity. But God damn it, I would want my pound of flesh. And I don't want my pound of flesh from the American taxpayer that had no part in committing that atrocity. I want my pound of
Well,
flesh
we
from
did
the
have a part.
bitch
We
that did
elected
it.
him. We did have a part. We elected him.
Yeah, but I mean, look, we can all be responsible for. Well, if I didn't vote for him, I'm not responsible.
That's true.
How am I responsible if I didn't vote for that person?
Mhm.
If you're going to say the electoral system is
as the
responsible
nation.
for it, but if I want my pound of flesh, I want it from the son of a bitch that made that decision to take my civil rights away from me. And there are provisions in the Constitution, if I'm not mistaken, that allow that to take place.
There are actually there are.
Right. So, being that that's already in the Constitution and it's not up for somebody to interpret or reinterpret, we look. The president of the United
Those
States.
provisions aren't in actually in the Constitution. Those provisions are in federal law.
Yeah, the U.S. Code, Title 18, 241 and 242.
Yeah.
I think.
All right, but there's
It's
still
actually Title 18, 240, 241, 242, and 243, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they've
all
already,
of
these things have been adjudicated to be constitutional.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as if they're constitutional, that's it. But like I said, there's got to be more mechanism in this country to hold people accountable than just the ballot box, because we know the ballot box can be rigged and votes can be bought, and we see that more and more every year.
240 articles of the U.S. Code are supposed to come in, because that strips away any immunity that they would enjoy.
Right.
Okay, through civil. Also, Title 42, Section 1984, also grants that as well. That's the civil side. Title 18 is the criminal side. Title 42 is the civil side, where you can remove qualified immunity.
I'm saying, if they say, all right, well, the president did this in the best interest of the country, it was a matter of national security, we had to secure this, that was the only thing we could do, so he's not criminally liable because he had his options.
And then at that point, then the United States becomes culpable.
All right. But still, okay, we can't put him in jail. However, the victims of whatever it was that person did should still be allowed to take that person to civil courts. Okay, listen, you weren't charged criminally because you're protected under the auspices of your office and your job, and this is what they say. But God damn it, you're going to pay me for my pain and suffering. And I think that's
where you come in again, like I said, with one part is sovereign immunity, another part is qualified immunity. There are several layers of immunity that beyond the absolute immunity that was defined under this ruling. There are also several other layers of immunity that elected officials do enjoy, but all that immunity can be removed if you can prove that the violation of rights did occur under the color of law. Then all those immunities are removed.
Okay, well, all I know is it's bad enough in
because ultimately government's entire role, and this is based in the Declaration and also based in the preamble of the Constitution, and is a firm basis of the Constitution as a whole. The first premise of the United States government is the protection of rights.
Correct.
Okay, so when you start violating rights, then you start acting contrary to the Constitution.
Well, all I know is when I sit and I look at the justice system the way it is now, and I see that there's too many people in this country who can do too much without repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
You have people that are appointed to lifetime positions that will never face a consequence for bad decisions or corrupt decisions that they make. There's too much immunity going around, especially when it's the citizens of the United States that wind up having to suffer the consequences of those decisions. And that's a lot of
actually one of the things that Democrats are trying to establish with the articles of impeachment that they put in against Alito and
Thomas.
Well, they're not looking for accountability. They're looking for headlines. That's what they're looking for. What they're looking for,
according to them, they're looking for accountability because these two justices acted in an unethical manner when they remained on cases that involved people they had received gifts from.
Right, according to them, but none of them has a single problem with the judge in New York who ran the Trump trial with all the connections that this guy's got to the Democrat Party and his daughter making $30 million.
Right,
all the rest. Well, that shit's perfectly fine. You know, those direct links are perfectly fine, but somebody got a breeze of a butterfly's wings that have flew by that he might have been in the same neighborhood as somebody else, and all of a sudden that's corruption. Mm-hmm. But when corruption's right in your face, it doesn't matter. That whole impeachment thing has got nothing to do with impeachment. It's got nothing to do with anything. What that is the first step in them trying to figure out how to expand the court legislatively. That's what they're trying to do. They know
they're trying to do that.
Right. They can't get the
and right now, with the balance of the way that the Congress is balanced, neither one's going to happen.
Right. No. See what they don't what they keep forgetting is the words co-equal branch of government.
Mm-hmm.
Congress cannot impose rules on a different branch of Congress.
Actually, they can.
Not the way they're going about it. Not the way they're going
about it, but they can.
Right, but again, co-equal branch of government. The Supreme Court can't go in and tell Congress how to make their rules about what hearings they're going to do, who's going to testify, what their committees look like, who's going to sit on what, and everything else. That's all in-house. Those are all the rules in-house. Okay. The House of Representatives doesn't tell the Senate how to do their job. Senate doesn't tell House of Representatives how to do theirs. The White House doesn't get to tell anybody on Congress how to do their job, and they can't get to tell anybody in the Supreme Court. And it goes around. That's co-equal branches of government. They can try to write rules and laws, and then let's write a law about how to do something with the Supreme Court. They pass it to the Senate. They pass it to the president. The president signs it into law. Supreme Court gets it and goes unconstitutional, and then it rips it up anyway. How do you impose a law on the people that decide whether or not it's constitutional or not? They're the deciding factor.
And that's the rub. That's the rub with all of it. With the co-equal branches of government, you have to have a group that's willing to enforce it in order to be able to make it happen.
Right, but that's the point. What I'm making with Congress is they know that whatever law they pass, if the Supreme Court doesn't like it, the Supreme Court just says no and does it. However, but if they figure out how to expand the court, it's a different animal altogether.
Now, this is Article 3, which is the article that discusses the judiciary.
The judicial
power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges both of the Supreme and inferior courts shall hold their office during good behavior and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. Now, nowhere in here does it say anything about how those courts need to be constituted. Okay, and that's what the Democrat Party is basing its deal on. That's also what FDR did, based it on when he was trying to expand the court. Now, the thing is any court expansion has to go through the House and the Senate. It does not arrive from the presidency. Now, the president may nominate additional court justices to be seated, but they still have to be approved by a 2/3 majority of the Senate.
Well, that's
Right.
the role of advise and consent.
Right. But then if they were to go about to nominate extra justices to put them on the bench, so they make it, instead of 9, they make it 13.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What would that look like?
Well, I'll
It
tell
would
you what.
depend upon presidents that's nominating them.
No. I'm saying what would that look like in terms of legislating an increase in the number of justices that sit upon SCOTUS?
If they
What
were
would that
going,
look like?
they would have to change the Judiciary Act. If it was originating from Congress, they would have to amend the Judiciary Act to go from, and it's been done before, because the Supreme Court used to only consist of 5 justices.
Right.
Okay. Then it was increased up to, I think it was increased to 6. And because there are so many ties, they decided to then increase it to 9 at a later time.
Well, when you know that thing, Michael, that you've been working on for so long about trying to figure out how many actual representatives we're supposed to have in Congress.
Yes.
Well, when we can get our 3,000 representatives in Congress, then they can talk about expanding the Supreme Court. Because until Congress is willing to let go of some of their authority and some of their ability to retain all that bribe money, okay, we'll talk about expanding the court then. Listen, I'm gonna cut it short from my end tonight. I got a couple of things I got to do. I have a house full of company tonight. Michael's got company tonight too.
Well, my
Remember-
company's all in bed.
Oh, they're on bed. Well, ours is just having dessert downstairs wrapped up. Remember, anybody going to the GOA convention in Knoxville, Tennessee, in August 16th, 17th, 18th, make sure you look me up out there. I'll be in the 5150 booth, and make sure that you stay tuned for my presentation that I'm going to be doing on behalf of the Liberty First Foundation.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I'll be speaking live at GOA in front of a crowd of rowdy Second Amendment people.
Makes me wish I could travel down there.
I don't know. We're gonna try and broadcast live when we do that. We'll see what happens. I'm trying to enlist the help of some camera people. My cousin. So we'll see what happens. Well,
Hey,
listen,
there's nothing better than more reliable than family, right? Yeah.
I love my cousin. He's looking forward to it. So we'll see what happens. But until I see you guys next week, be safe, shoot straight. Love you guys, and have yourself a good, safe night. Keep up the good work. Good show tonight so far. I'll be in the comment section shortly.
Okay, you take care, Frank.
All right, good night, kids. Jan, speak up. Love you.
Love you too, babe.
Bye.
Real quick, I want to share this since we were talking about it earlier. Let me bring it up here. Share screen. I want to do this one. Share. I don't know if you can see that yet. Boop. All right, watch this. So there's Joe, right? He's coming in. This is his surprise visit to the Michigan Garage Grill in Northville, Michigan, right? So he's talking with a kid named Bo, and he's like, "You're Bo? I've got a bow too." Yeah. So there's that. I can give you sound too, but I don't know if I want to do that in case Forbes decides to strike us.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he goes here, and then she's being introduced by, I don't know who this is, but she's a representative of some sort in that community.
Right. the 6th district of Michigan.
Yep. And what's really funny is she talks about him very okay. Here he goes. Look, and there he goes. He lands it. This kid's like, what the hell?
Well,
Oh,
he
man.
does the same to her too.
Yeah. Well, these two, the way she's talking about him in his introduction,
Yeah.
They had some sharing going on, and I don't think it was with Jill's permission. Let's just put it that way.
So, back on track with the immunity decision. I don't think that the Supreme Court defined things well enough in their decision.
No, I think what they did is they did a broad ruling in the sense that the president does have immunity for certain things, but they didn't actually narrow it down to a specific category of events. Right. So when you look at because they're deciding for the entire presidency, now they're not just deciding for Trump. So when they're talking about immunity, they're not just talking about the previous administration. No. They're talking about the drone strikes from Obama. They're talking about Sarajevo from Clinton, right? Because there were a lot of things that happened in Sarajevo that people in Serbia will never forgive NATO and the UN for.
Right.
And we were a very large part of that.
Right.
So they attribute blame to the U.S. largely for the actions that happened in Sarajevo. So there were things there. So this goes all the way back. And the reason I think they did that was because if they didn't do that and decide for the entire presidency, SCOTUS would be mired in cases going up the chain where people are just throwing lawsuit after every official personage in
and that
the government.
And that's the thing that I was trying to get at with Frank too, is the president does have to have times when he has absolute immunity from civil cases. Right. Okay. Otherwise, the presidency would be mired down in civil cases the entire time they're in office.
Now,
I could actually see that happening, and that's one of the reasons why, in some cases, in how they described absolute immunity, I don't have a problem with that because the president needs to be able to do their job
right
within the confines of Article 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Okay. Now, those drone strikes that you were talking about, okay, those are acts of war. So actually, he should have had congressional authority to do so. Okay. Now, this is where we got to get people to understand things. Okay. The president is commander in chief of the armed forces.
Correct.
Okay. And he has absolute control over those armed forces in a defensive capacity.
Right.
Okay. I.e., the defense of the nation.
Mm-hmm.
A drone strike on an operative overseas is not defense of the nation unless there is absolute credible intelligence that that individual is getting ready to conduct an attack on members of our military that are stationed overseas in that area. Okay, then you could say, yes, that is an absolute, then he's operating within his powers.
Right.
Just to do a drone attack against a quote unquote high value target he doesn't have that authority. Okay, that actually has to come from Congress through the warfare clause. Okay, because that is an act of war. A defensive act is not an act of war. An offensive act is an act of war.
Makes sense. I think the biggest disgusting thing that I've seen come out of this, some guy, he's of course a leftist. I've heard a lot of things out of Twitter about him. He posted on Twitter the other day that because SCOTUS has made this ruling that Joe Biden can authorize the military to go assassinate Trump, and he'd be in the clear and free of doing it.
No.
Exactly. But
Because,
this guy put
number
this
one,
out there on X.
And here's the thing, okay, is they would actually try to claim that is an official act of his underneath the commander-in-chief. Okay, and they would try to claim that this was in defense of the nation. Well, that defense needs to be against a credible, imminent threat. Okay, Trump would not qualify as a credible, imminent threat. Okay,
Well, according to Democrats, he is.
Yes, according to Democrats, they think he is. But he hasn't been elected to office. Until he's elected to office, he has no capacity to do what they're claiming he's going to do.
Exactly.
Okay,
well, and I think
that's where this they had this hypothetical case that came up during this decision where Sotomayor asked, does the president have the ability within his official acts to have a known enemy of America that is running for office assassinated? Okay, and that would not be an official act because there is no way to prove or to show that that individual is a direct, imminent threat to the United States. Okay, because there is a chance that they might not be elected.
Right.
Okay.
Unless he was at the forefront.
There's still that chance that they won't be elected.
Unless he was at the forefront of a rebellious army, there would be no reason that wouldn't be considered then an assassination.
Now,
that would be considered defense of the nation.
If he was the president-elect, then there might be some gray area where you could qualify that. Let's say it was another Hitler, per se. Okay, but still, you can't predict exactly what somebody's going to do in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't. Unless you actually have evidence that they have the weaponry or whatever, and they are an actual imminent threat.
And at that point, you would release the evidence.
Right.
Right. So in the way our justice system is, it should be a reactive system. So it doesn't act without cause. So you have to have that cause first, that first action that gives cause to act upon it. So when you're talking about, say, the president-elect is at the head of a rebellious army and you have all the evidence, and the action hasn't happened yet, then you need to let the system run, and then you would release the evidence, and then you follow through with a course of action that may lead to the defense of the nation. Right.
First off, you have to have justifiable, probable cause.
Right.
And
then you must proceed with due process.
Okay, well, I think this is a good segue into our next subject because we're a little bit over on this one. And I'm going to start it off with this before I say what the subject is, because it's how they're trying to tie some of this into Trump right now. And that's the Project 2025.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Trump has come out and denounced Project 25. The Democrats keep trying to tell everybody that it's, it's the big lie. Well, the big lie in truth, and I saw it came out today, that the Trump Project 2025.com, that they're saying that all this activity is going on it. Well, the activity that is going on this site is from other countries. So they've got their people over there that they're telling, go look at this website, and it'll spike to 100% or 80%, and then it goes back down to 0. Then another day or a few hours later, it'll spike again and it'll go down. It was made by Biden's team. The .com was made by Biden's team.
Right.
Yeah. No,
People
the
need to understand this. It's another Russia hoax. It's another dossier hoax.
well, Project 2025 was built by the Heritage Foundation and several other groups. I think it was like 100 groups that are all conservative leaning. They're all constitutionally leaning, and basically the document was drawn up in the sense of a constitutional restoration, right? The political side is constitutional restoration. There's also a Christian, Judeo-Christian moralistic side to the document, right? And that's one of the things that the Heritage Foundation founder was talking about, was that this was going to be, he chose the word revolution. I would not have chosen that word, because that's not what he's looking for, really. It's a restoration, which is what we're looking for. We're looking for the restoration of the Constitution back to its original founding principles. Insofar as the political side of the reform for Project 2025, Trump would be on board, because it matches a lot with his agenda, which is Agenda 47.
Which is our subject coming up next.
Right. But Project 2025, as the Heritage Foundation and others have written it, if I remember correctly, Jason of Binghamton was on last week. And he was one of the people that had started out in one of the groups that helped to draft Project 2025. At least I remember him saying that. Or he was associated with someone who was.
He's associated with people. He wasn't directly involved, but he's associated with multiple people that are involved.
Right. And he at that point, he was saying as well that it's a restoration, right? It's a constitutional restoration. So this is a third party. There are third party groups that put out ideological white papers all the time, both on the left and the right.
And I think another thing that people need to understand is it's not from a policy standpoint, it's from an administrative standpoint. Project 2025. It's to, let's get these people into these administrations.
Right. And it's basically taking Saul Alinsky's playbook and it's using it against the left. So where they took 70 years, 80 years to infiltrate places like educational institutions, governmental bureaucracies, all these places, military industrial complex, .com, technological sectors, all this stuff. It's a game plan. Project 2025 is a game plan to try and use those same tactics, right, to be able to put people with more constitutionally leaning values back into these places of authority, so that the administrative side of the state starts to reflect more of the general populace of America as it was when we were founded.
So now let's get into what Trump policy that we're looking at actually is, which is Agenda 47.
Right. Because Trump is not concerned about the Christian moralistic, the Judeo-Christian moralistic ethic,
and there's
side of that.
How Trump has said on this, there's a lot of things that he does not like. He said there's things that he does like about Project 2025, and there's things that he doesn't like about 2025.
Right.
Okay. At first, he started saying that he didn't know anything about Project 2025. And how true that is or not, I don't know. But there again, and I don't care who you are, there's going to be things about any of this that you're going to agree with, and there's going to be parts of it that you don't agree with.
Right.
Trump has actually been working on Agenda 47 for some time.
Right. Since he left
Okay.
office. He looked at a lot of the mistakes that he made in his first term, and he's actually getting, from his own experience, good information as to how the system behaved while he was in, and he's trying
Right.
to improve his next administration from those mistakes. The only caveat that I have to that is that he still has a very poor taste in how he chooses to hire the people that advise him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it's just because he expects that, because I don't know if it's like a boardroom mentality, like a carryover from business.
I think it is.
But he expects people to play to him because he's the big man on campus, right? So they're not going to steer him wrong because it's not in their best interest to do so.
Right.
Because he'll be able to work with them, negotiate with them, and forward whatever agenda that it is, as long as it coincides with his vision. But what he failed to grasp in his first term, and I still think he fails at, is these people that he surrounds himself with, they're complete partisan ideologues. They don't care.
Partisan ideologue, yes, man.
Yeah, they don't care about anything other than what they can secure for themselves, and they don't care how the people of the country end up paying for it. They just want to see their ideology put forward and play out.
Right.
And that goes for the GOP, like the standard GOP, the neocons, and all that group, and it also goes for the left. You're talking your social democrats, your farther left leaning than center moderates, those types. They just want to see their ideology put forward to fruition. So if Trump can stick to Agenda 47 as far as policy is concerned, and he takes people that are more constitutionally leaning towards founding principles of liberty, then I think we'll see a renaissance. But if he makes the same failing as he did in his first administration, we're already in for a world of hurt, but we're going to be hurting a lot more at the end of it.
Right. And the thing is I don't care what policy it is, whether it's Project 2025 or it's Agenda 47, the left is going to play it as Trump is trying to be a dictator.
Oh, yeah.
And that is exactly how they are playing it. But if you actually look into this stuff, that is not what he's trying to do.
No. Okay. If anything, he's a moderate reformer. He's like a Reaganite.
Okay. Rescuing American auto industries from Joe Biden's disastrous job-killing policies. Rebuilding America's depleted military. Protecting students from radical left Marxist maniacs infecting educational institutions. Protecting Americans by taking on big pharma and ending global freeloading.
That's important. That's important because the global freeloading comes in where they put price caps on medicines that we develop, and they don't figure into the price.
Not just that. Okay.
No, it's trade in general, but I'm talking about specifically for big pharma. A lot of the reason why we pay so much for our medications is because we do all the R&D, but when we sell it abroad, they have price caps on the medications they buy from us that are negotiated in trade, and then they don't pay for the R&D. They don't help shoulder the cost of that development and research. They just buy the medicine. So they get it at a cheaper rate. So who pays for the R&D? The American consumer. That's who pays for it. So that's an extremely important plank for his agenda.
Cementing fair and reciprocal trade with the Reciprocal Trade Act. Okay, that one there. Okay, if y'all haven't had a chance to, I highly advise reading Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics.
I started reading that. It's actually very good.
Oh, it's incredible. I'm going through it the second time right now because there's just so much to learn from it. It talks about international trade
Hmm.
and the effects that tariffs actually have on international trade.
Yeah.
And generally, the goal, what the intent of tariffs are, and what the repercussions of tariffs actually end up being are two completely different things. And they're generally diametrically opposed to each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Using impoundment to cut waste and stop inflation and crush the deep state. Okay. Addressing the rise of chronic childhood illnesses. It's scourge of drug addiction in America. Now,
Another big one.
hopefully, that isn't another war on drugs, because that's the last thing we need.
I wonder if that's going to be addressing the overprescription of opiates, painkillers,
And that could be.
because the biggest thing right now is the use of painkillers, opiate-based painkillers. They gave them to all these adults. The adults keep them in their homes, sometimes for extended periods. They don't get rid of them because
Yeah.
they keep them on hand in case they need them again. They're too expensive to just throw down the toilet.
Right.
or dispose of at a pharmacy. So these kids, they get in the medicine cabinets or whatever, and they start taking the drugs out of the medicine cabinets if the parents are not watching, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, part of that's parenting. I don't know that the government should necessarily be involved in parenting, but if he can find a way to educate the American population so that these prescription drugs that get in the hands of kids, the parents actually move to, make sure that their kids don't, and that they're used properly.
Right.
That would be fine. But a lot of that abuse stems from, quite frankly, boredom.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
It is. Okay. There's actually been studies done. And one of the biggest studies, it was with the indigenous people of Alaska. Okay. And I kind of prescribe to these studies as well. They no longer have any way to really build their self-esteem anymore.
right.
Okay. If you don't know, the state of Alaska with the indigenous people up there, what the federal government did is they, instead of setting up reservations like they did with the Native Americans down here in the lower 48, up in Alaska, they set up what was called native corporations. And if you were a member of a native tribe, you had stock in that native corporation. And many of these native corporations have gone on, become quite successful and so forth. And many of the indigenous people up there rely upon these dividends from these native corps. Okay. They don't have to provide for themselves anymore. And in a lot of ways, these are quite lucrative. But it's gotten them away from their heritage. It's gotten them away from their feeling of contributing to society. And I believe that is one of the bigger causes towards any type of substance abuse, is when you start feeling like you're no longer contributing. And if you look at it, a lot of substance abuse stems from, hold on a second, we got Michael Bass here. I'll go ahead and I'll continue after Michael gives us his update
Can you
because I'm
guys hear
sure
me?
he's wanting to get back out there.
Can kind of hear you.
I don't hear anything.
We're,
Can kind of
we
kinda hear
just
you.
barely hear you. I see you're at the Larry Sharp booth. Can you hear us, Michael? Michael, are you there? Can you hear us, Michael? No, I don't think he has a good enough connection to hear us.
He's been uploading all day, so I imagine that's taking a lot of bandwidth.
Oh, I imagine it is. I imagine it is. Well, I'll continue on. Okay, and
Oh, maybe he's back. Can you hear us?
are you back, Michael? Can you hear us yet?
No,
No, he's not hearing us. Okay, so I'll go ahead and go back. I think he's going to try to come back. So I'm going to go ahead and start again.
So native corporations. So they were
Right.
at the right. Lack of purpose.
Okay, and lack of purpose. A lot of people that become addicted to various substances generally happen after it occurs after they've had a very traumatic injury that's kept them out of work for an extended period of time. Okay, I'm not saying that that's all of them, but that is a large part of substance abuse cases.
Right.
They get addicted to various opioids and so forth during their recovery. And I think that stems from their not. Let's see if can you hear us now, Michael?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you better. Can you hear
Okay.
us?
I can barely hear you guys,
Okay, that's not good.
but barely is better than not at all. Sorry
Yeah.
if I'm interrupting. By the way, I can't see anything on the screen. You're all frozen. But
Right.
the reason why it may be spotty, I'm in Las Vegas right now.
Yep.
And so my coverage, I'm in the Caesars Forum, the convention center for Freedom Fest. Larry Sharp helped me get there. And we just finished the last event, second to last event for the night. And so it sounds like it's dead silent. It's been a crazy day. I've been going nonstop.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So, well, I was actually going to have you give us an update as to what's going on there.
Freedom Fest has been very good. We've had Justin Amash speak twice. Thomas Massey is here. He was just moderating a debate with Chase Oliver, the Libertarian candidate for president, debating Jill Stein on stage. We had RFK Jr., who was here just a little bit earlier than that today. He was giving a speech.
And we lost him. He's going to have a real hard time.
Yep.
So I think that people that end up getting that addicted after they have a long-term injury or illness where they are on painkillers and stuff for a long duration. Let's see, he's back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh,
I can hear you
that's
better
a better
now.
connection now.
Yeah, it's
better.
because we're in the convention center, and so
Right.
as people are shutting down all of their various wireless, I think I'm getting better signal, somewhat so. But I don't know where I left off. RFK spoke. Thomas Massey is here, even though he just lost his wife. He didn't show up. There was a debate. Justin Amash was yesterday. I did cover that as well. Got a lot of photos. Ice-T was here. He was speaking. Got a lot of photos with that. Actually, really close up. So that was really good. The still photos no one's seen yet. I have about 5,000 photos to go through. That'll be after the event. Tomorrow is going to be big. Dr. Cornell West is going to be here. He's going to be on stage with Larry Sharp and Maj Toure, who's with Black Guns Matter.
Mhm.
Yep.
And we've gotten, I was even speaking to Omni Institute, talking about the geopolitics in India and how that's affecting the United States and Eurasia. So that's been very interesting. We may be speaking to a group called We the People, who have this, they're putting together a system, a online system, to be able to connect the public with both the incumbent and challengers. So you can ask a question, just ask a question in the chat. It'll go to both of those individuals in the election, and they will have to respond to you. And it's locked, geo-locked to your location. So people, and if you're in the 15th district, you can't get people from the 16th district making comments. So that's
Right.
really interesting. I'll be trying to speak with them tomorrow. It's been whirlwind.
Whirlwind nonstop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Voss has
He's
been
not going to have
uploading
that
regularly.
great of a connection there.
No.
But
No,
I've been enjoying the content he's been posting.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. There was actually the one with Larry Sharp and there was a representative from Liberasia. It's a place in the Caucasus. That was interesting.
What?
The coverage that you did, Voss, with the guy from the Caucasus Mountains, the country that's just starting up.
Lieberland.
Lieberland, yeah. That was interesting.
Definitely. I'm walking, as you can see right now. So
Right.
hopefully I'm going to find a little bit better reception as I do this. But it's been a really great event so far. We're talking about at least 4,000 people, possibly more, have been here. And we're going to see even more of them tomorrow. The event ends tomorrow night. And then I'm coming back Sunday. It's going to be like 14 hours. I won't be back until the evening. So I may or may not be live then. That'll be on Sunday. Any questions you guys got me while I got good signal?
No, the Maj Toure should be an interesting discussion. I like a lot of his solutionary stuff that he does on Twitter. So that's good. And he might actually have some updates on Dexter Taylor's case, because I know that he was following that very closely.
He was, and Maj is, I've actually known Maj since about 2019. I'm one of the first people to actually interview Maj when he came to CPAC. So a lot of people don't know that. And Maj is a great guy, and it was great to reconnect with him here today, actually a couple of days ago. And he's going to be doing an interview with me. Actually, he's going to interview me, which is even better, because that never happens.
No,
but
that'll
he's
be
going
great.
to be, yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. And he was talking about guns and red flag laws with Spike Cohen on.
We're losing you. Sure. Hey, he's gone again.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I'm not seeing it though.
For what?
I thought I had an interview with Maj that I had done early.
He's a very
on.
smart man.
Well, anybody in the audience, I would suggest go checking out No Sound Bites Allowed on YouTube and watching the content that Boss is putting out on the channel.
Yeah. The Lieberland idea seems really good. Like, instead of just a normal state, just to kind of gloss over what Voss was projecting from the interview with Larry Sharp. So there's a piece of non-contested property that is the size of a small country in the Caucasus Mountains, that people that were disaffected from other countries have been just congregating in this place, and now they've actually set up an immigration program. And their final target for population size is about 144,000 people. And they basically, you go into this country, you can live there as an immigrant if you bring something to the table. So they're looking for craftsmen, they're looking for like trades, carpentry, plumbing, electricity, and taxes are voluntary there. And if you pay taxes, if you volunteer to pay taxes, essentially what you're doing is you're buying a share in the country. So you get a controlling share, so to speak, of the government, and everything's done in crypto. So it's all transparent. Like anything the government decides to spend their money on, you're going to see an itemized list of everything that they spend every bit of crypto on. I think that's great. That's a level of transparency that you're not going to see in any other government anywhere in the world. And really as far as I could tell, the only stipulation is that you cannot just come in and freeload. There is no welfare state. You come in, you produce. That's it. Like right. You don't have to pay taxes if you don't want to, but that also means that you're going to have a lesser direct input in the governance of that nation. You're just going to reap the benefits of your labor, and then live in that country as free as they could possibly make it. So that's interesting. I found that to be a very good interview.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead just in case he comes back.
Okay.
And then we got closing. So, okay. Moron of the week. I'm going to start this week.
Okay.
There was a gentleman, his name is Tory Levy. He writes for Secret Chicago. And he came out with an article that stated that Chicago is named the second best city in America. And his reasoning for this is because of their infrastructure and their affordability. Now, nowhere in this article does it mention how out of control their crime is.
How could you even say it's affordable? Because they're hurting for money trying to build these immigration camps for the illegal aliens. One of the biggest beefs that the people of Chicago have been going to their government about is the fact that all this money is being blown on these camps for criminal aliens, but they're not doing anything for the social programs that would actually benefit the people that live there.
Well, we're always hearing how bad the infrastructure is across the U.S. So how is your infrastructure better than everybody else's when it's supposedly such a problem?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't help that they still have a really high gangland crime. Like the shootings over the 4th of July were off the charts. Like they basically said that there was the highest number that they've had in years. And I don't know. I just don't see how you could possibly claim the title as the second best city to live in for affordability when they're cutting costs everywhere for things that make it possible to live there, but they're also driving up the prices for people to live there. That doesn't make any sense to me. You can't be both. It's got to be one or the other.
Well, that's why I picked him for my moron of the week.
Okay. Yeah. I could see it. I thought you were going to come out with Harry Sisson because that was just...
He's an idiot.
He's a paid idiot.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. I mean, you got to say that the stuff that he puts out there is really wild, but he's paid for it. So I guess, hey, man, good on you for the grift.
All right. Who wants to go next?
Let's see. Who did I have for that? It was. Oh, I'm gonna get dark here for a second. Because I don't have a dedicated source of lighting. Oh, this one. So Colin Rugg is reporting on this, and he's not the moron, but the moron is the guy that produced this film. Let me bring this up. Oh, let me see who can I attribute this to. It's where is it? Okay, here we go. I got it. This is going to be good. Share. So, Colin Rugg reports that there is a brand new documentary about Abraham Lincoln. Did you guys see this? Hold on, let me see. Did it come up?
No.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, I got it.
Let me see here. Share screen. This.
Okay.
Okay. Let me. Can you guys see that or no?
Yeah, you got to read it. You can see it, but you got to read it.
Okay. Whoop. Too big. There. New documentary claims Abraham Lincoln had steamy gay sex sessions with male partners in the new film Lover of Men, which examines the intimate life of America's most consequential president, coming out on September 6th. And these are the people that are involved here. Let's see. Whoop.
He is considered.
There we go. So we don't get struck. So anyway, they got a whole bunch of people here talking about. I got to find out who it is that produced this film, because that's the moron of the week.
Right.
But they're see who does this. Oh, I had this up. Let's see here. And what is it? Lower. Yeah. Here we go. No, I don't want the trailer. No. Come on. What are you doing? I apologize for the technical difficulties. They're only showing the trailer. They're not actually showing who did it. Oh, Alston Anderson is the producer of this. It's actually from a book. No, that's not it either. Oh, Lover of Men movie.
Okay.
All right, why don't you bring him in while I try to find this?
So I'm going to go ahead and my moron of the week is Governor Kathy Hochul.
Oh, our favorite.
Surprise!
Here is the exact reason why. Kathy Hochul has been pushing for electric vehicles. Has said it so that New York State is one of the states that is supposed to be completely electric within a few years. Okay, this is a tweet of hers. Our firefighters put their lives on the line every day to keep us safe, and fires caused by lithium-ion batteries are especially difficult to fight.
They are.
Proud to be joined by FDNYFC and UFANYC as we sign legislation to stop these deadly fires from happening.
Oxymoron.
Yeah, really.
So essentially, and she's got a ton of tweets on it. I just signed legislation to hold lithium-ion battery producers accountable, support firefighter departments, and save lives. Too many have lost their lives in fires caused by these cheaply made batteries, and I refuse to let manufacturers put profit over the safety of New Yorkers.
She's still going on that whole safety thing, isn't she?
We are taking action to extinguish the scourge of lithium-ion battery fires. Join me live as I sign legislation that will protect New Yorkers and save lives.
Oh boy. I'm surprised
Okay,
that you didn't choose her for the FPC lawsuit for the body armor that she's going through now for her body armor ban. The FPC has brought a lawsuit against her in New York, and they're fighting her currently on trying to get that law repealed.
Did you guys hear that Stoudemire is under fire right now?
Stoudemire, why?
Because she's a staunch. Let's take everybody's guns away from us.
right.
And this week, her armed guards shot somebody trying to carjack.
Yep.
So there's a lot of hits out on her right now because, well, if you can have armed guards, why can't we own guns?
Right.
Right. Yeah, because we're not everyone's going to sit there and try to do the buy security thing. So this is the director is Sean Peterson. I don't know if I can sit here and do this.
And where supposedly are they supposed to be getting this information from?
Supposedly it's from writings, like secondhand accounts, third-hand accounts.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
Supposedly there's supposed to be letters from Lincoln.
all I know is that he also killed vampires at one point.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, I couldn't believe I saw that, and I was like, of course, it's history. We laugh at it, but this is history revision, like in the making, and it's one of the things that who was it? G. Edmund. I think it was G. Edmonds was who's part of the Red Pill Society now. That's what he's doing now. But back in the 1960s, he did a thing called the Communist Revolution in 1969, and it was worse than the talk was called Worse Than Warfare, and I have the video of it. He did a presentation, and one of the things he talks about in there is how they would start with race, right? Communists would start with race to divide the United States into smaller and smaller groups. And then they would begin, the next phase would begin with the revision of history or the altering of history. So they would take things that were known historical fact, and then they just start adding things to it. Right? We're seeing it all play out right here. Like it's happening to us in real time. And honestly, the only way that we're going to be able to combat it is we have to talk about it, but we also have to make sure that when we talk about it, we mock with laughter, because that's the one tool that nobody can really defend against is laughter. It short circuits cognitive dissonance, it breaks down barriers, and it allows people to really think about the issues. And that's one of the reasons why comedians now are finding their work so hard, is because people are trying to kill laughter because they know how effective it is.
Yeah, and I mean they are trying to revise history. I mean, I got into a discussion about abortion this week, and this person commented literally that a fetus is not alive. Okay. And the Bible even claims that a fetus is not alive. And they tried to use Genesis when God breathed life into Adam. And
Right.
I said, well, let's look at these other Bible verses. If you want to use the Bible, okay, because I wasn't using the Bible, let's look at these other Bible verses. And one of them, and I don't remember the exact verses off the top of my head, but one of them talks about how God knew you when you were in the womb.
Yep.
And when you were created.
Mm-hmm.
And so forth. Well, that kind of shut her down on that. And I said, okay, let's look at who really utilized, let's look at the history of abortion and what it was actually utilized for when it was conceived of and throughout history.
Right.
Okay. One of the main reasons for abortion to come out was to obscure, not completely hide, but to obscure illicit relationships. And 9 times out of 10, it was a powerful man
Mm-hmm.
that got together with a commoner woman
Right.
and got them pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And then that powerful man would force that commoner to get an abortion.
Right.
And that's what started a lot of this. Okay, because she is trying to claim that, well, abortion's been practiced clear back in for eternity. And I said, yeah, it has been for this reason.
Right. Well, when you got to figure in history, when whole dynasties relied on whose blood you carried,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
You couldn't have several children running around that were considered illegitimate inside of a proper dynasty because they would fight over the crown.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, ultimately, if you have illegitimate kids, you had one of two things that you could do. Either you could force an abortion, or you ended up having to slaughter them all because you'd be fighting wars with them over who gets to take the crown next.
Right. And then she goes, and these abortions were commonly carried out by midwives and other medical people.
They would
I
use
said-
herbal tonics. Yeah.
No, hold on a second. I said, not doctors, huh?
No.
Well, maybe that's because doctors considered that as killing,
Mm-hmm.
as
Yep.
murder. Okay. And they wouldn't degrade themselves because the doctors take a Hippocratic oath. And then I posted a quote from Hippocrates
Do no
that
harm.
literally states that he would refuse to give any type of poison or medicine or whatever to cause a woman to abort a child.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then I
because
go
essentially-
on to explain.
Essentially, it's do no harm.
Mhm.
Hippocrates was
Yeah.
all about healing people. He didn't want to kill people.
Right. Okay.
Now-
and he
now-
is considered the father of modern medicine.
Now the modern oath that's loosely based on the Hippocratic oath that you can take, it's voluntary now with doctors, is just a bunch of feel good buzzwords. It really doesn't hold any weight whatsoever, and do no harm does not appear in it. It basically says, I'm not going to rip you off if you allow me to treat you.
Yeah.
That's the long and the short of it.
Yeah. And I said, okay, let's look at what abortion was used for later in history.
1920s. Right.
Okay. I said
30s.
Margaret Sanger set up Planned Parenthood for eugenics and for the elimination of the black race.
Yep.
Okay.
Well-
and that's why Planned Parenthood is located primarily in neighborhoods of color.
blacks and mental retardation. Like she
Mhm.
also wanted to get rid of the disabled kids.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. And I went on. I said Hitler used it. Okay. I said abortion is literally a form of genocide.
Yeah.
Okay, and was commonly used as genocide as a genocidal tactic because Alexander Hamilton used it against the Native Americans with forced abortions and forced sterilizations of Native people.
But yet again, it's one of those things that we're going to change the narrative and we're going to change the definition.
Well, that's it. Okay, they're trying to change this, and she comes back. Well, that's two racist people that you. And I said, it's this way throughout history. If you look at the early reasons for abortion, it was literally to control women. Okay. If you look at later instances of abortions, it was literally to control women. Okay. It wasn't to empower women, it was to control women, it was to take their choice away.
Specifically for promiscuity.
Mhm.
Like it allowed men to be promiscuous without allowing women to be promiscuous at the same time.
Right.
Because they realized that women could produce many children and many children would become a threat to power structures.
Right.
Well, and it's kind of swapped now. If you think about their argument, it's not about the promiscuity of men anymore. It's about the promiscuity of women. Well, I'm not going to take, and I am not going to take the accountability to take birth control or do the things that I need to do to practice safe sex. I'm just going to go have sex, and if I get pregnant,
And that was the
I'm
thing
going to
that
go
I
get an abortion and be proud of it.
and that was the other point that I pointed out. I said abortion has always been to avoid accountability. It's always been that.
Yeah.
Okay, throughout history, no matter which side was causing it, no matter what side, it was always about avoiding accountability.
Yeah. Avoiding accountability and not and limiting the amount of threat to power structure.
Mm-hmm.
That those two things, it's always been about that.
Right.
I mean, even with the eugenics movement, when they had paired breedings and things where they were doing eugenics, just added another layer, because then it was, we're not only going to control threats to power structure, we're also going to control genetic purity. There was this idea back in the 30s and like the 20s through the 30s and maybe even as late as the 40s, where there was this big push for genetic purity, and it was one of the guiding principles that Hitler adopted later on. And in fact, if I remember correctly, I believe it was Dinesh D'Souza's America, What Would We Do Without Her, where he showed that Nazi Germany was so enamored by what America had done with eugenics that Hitler used it as a plank for his takeover of Germany. But there were things about eugenics that even the Nazis thought went too far. And they were like, no, we're not going to use that, but we'll use this other stuff because that's good. But this is not good.
And there's, no matter how you want to look at it, okay, one of the biggest tactics that they try to utilize to justify abortion is to dehumanize the unborn child.
Right.
By calling it a fetus.
As if it's not part of nature that everything that's mammalian starts out as a fetus.
Let's go that route. Okay, so fetus is supposedly not human, except 97% of biologists all believe that human life starts at conception.
Right.
Okay. So, if a fetus is not a human life, as you are trying to dehumanize it, okay, you can't. Okay, because that leads to you being able to dehumanize infants
Right.
and claim that since they are relying upon others, that they are not human.
It doesn't matter whether it's internal
Then we
or
can go
external.
on
Right.
and dehumanize toddlers. Then we can go on and dehumanize the elderly and so forth and so on. I said, where
Right.
does it stop? When you actually look at it, a fetus is just a stage of development of a human being.
Correct.
Okay. It's not anything more, it's not anything less. It is still a human being.
Yep.
Okay. And being a fetus is a stage of development, just like being an infant, being a toddler, being an adolescent, being an adult. Those are all stages of development.
Correct. Yep.
And then, of course, I got told, well, you shouldn't have an opinion on that. You're a male.
And then you come back with, well, do you believe in gun control?
Mhm.
You're not a gun owner. So why do you have an opinion on it?
Right. So,
You want to go that route and try to use that logic? Well, then here you go.
well, when I literally pointed out the inherent evil behind abortion and how it was instituted as an evil thing, and
Yeah.
it's been evil throughout history, and it's been utilized as for evil intent all the way through history, and even currently is being used for evil intent.
Mm.
They don't like that.
You
No,
know,
because it forces them to try and decide whether they're evil or not.
Mm-hmm.
Their
I
belief in it questions that.
I changed my opinion on listening to men's opinions. When I was growing up, my dad always said, my dad's a staunch conservative, and he always said growing up that a male should not have a say-so when it came to women's rights. But then as I went through what I went through, and growing up and knowing other people that have had abortions or other people that have done this and that, and then you started hearing men come out talking about, well, I would have raised the child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would have. Why do I not get a say in you having an abortion? And I really started looking at that side of it, and I was like, that makes sense. If there's a woman out there that gets pregnant that doesn't want the child, and the man who she got pregnant by wants the child, he should have every right to have you go through that pregnancy and him raise the child.
But
It's like
not
it's
just
like
that.
giving it's like women in my position who had what happened to me. I gave the child up.
Yeah.
It's the same concept.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't when it comes to the biology of pregnancy, unless there's a way that you could possibly remove the fetus and then grow it outside of the woman, biology demands that the woman carry the child in order to have the best chance of survival.
Mm-hmm.
That's just biology. That's not something within our control. I mean, medical science is an amazing thing. We've made very large leaps and bounds, and we are able to keep children alive through developmental stages earlier and earlier. And I know in places that don't regulate their medicinal technology like we do, places like China, right? They say, I haven't seen any proof of this, but they say they're able to grow fetuses outside of the womb.
Yes,
right?
I've seen reports on that.
In artificial wombs. But then so maybe you do, once you do have that biological disconnect where a woman was able to say, well, I don't want that in my body, but if you want to raise it, then by all means, when the 9 months is up and it's born, right, from whatever the artificial womb is, and take responsibility for that child, I have no problem with that. But we're not there yet. we're not at that part of the discussion yet, because we still have to, we still
This
are,
article came out in September of 2023.
we're still held to biology for the most part. Things like this with the human trials, they're not mainstream yet. So if you're a constitutionalist, then that's still a human being that is dependent on the biology of a woman to come to fruition.
Well,
And
that's
and because you're a constitutionalist, that child, who is a fetus and the stage of development, biological development, has the same unalienable rights that you or I do as an adult.
and
Well,
that
have you
that's
guys-
the thing.
Have you
Okay.
guys seen the video where somebody, where I think I saw it on X? There was a video. I wish I would have saved it, where it shows that so many hours after all the cells start generating,
Right.
there's
After
a
conception.
flash of light.
Yep.
And they say that's and in the video it says basically that's when the soul enters the fetus.
Right. It's the spark of life. It's
Is that what?
they call it that's not the movie, but that's the stage. It's called the spark of life. And that's when everything activates. That's when your chromosomes and everything bond together and they start replicating and turning into cells. That exact moment, there's like an electrical charge that goes off that looks like a spark that you can be picked up on various pieces of equipment. And
Yeah,
it's called the spark of life.
Really interesting video, and I think that that right there proves that it's a life.
Right.
Well, it's easy to prove that it's a lie. Okay, because that entity, that human being within
Comes out as a human being.
that mother has a completely different DNA.
Yeah.
It is not the same DNA as the mother. It's not the same DNA as the father. It is a combination of both of their DNA, and it is unique to that human.
Yep.
Well,
And
and then
so-
we can't forget how much the pharmaceuticals make off of aborted babies.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's
So,
one of the reasons why it's
That's the
perpetuated.
one thing that they never want to get into the conversation with you
Right.
about, though, that I find is when you bring up, well, let's talk about the cost associated with pharmaceuticals. And
Mhm.
oh no, we can't go there.
Yeah. And my biggest premise on this was that, and it actually started off as a discussion about Project 2025 and how they're going to outlaw abortions nationwide. And I said, no, that's not what it says. It says no government money will be allowed to be used for abortions.
Right.
And we
Okay.
know how much money the Democrats give Planned Parenthood every
Mhm.
year.
But see, that the only reason they can do that is because they mandatorily tax us for it. Like they rob us every
Right.
year for stuff like this, and it's
that's-
not in our best interest.
And
If they
that's
want to
why-
make a private fund to do these things as like a social outreach for their ideology, they're more than welcome to do that, because then it's voluntary whether people join up with it or not. And
Right.
folks like myself that try to fight for the unalienable rights of the child, no matter what stage they're at, I'm not participating in that. I'm not forced to participate
There
in that.
was a gentleman who absolutely refused to pay his taxes. And he took it to court. And he literally said, the reason why I will not pay taxes is I do not approve of what my tax money is being utilized for. It goes against my beliefs.
Yeah.
Okay. It is against my faith. And that's one of the biggest problems. Okay. one of the earliest redresses of grievances that we had until they instituted this basically mandatory payment system that we have
Yeah.
Was the withholding of our taxes. Okay, that was what literally led to our independence.
Yeah.
Okay, was our voluntary withholding of taxes to the crown.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a means of redressing grievances.
It
and
would
I
be,
guarantee if we could,
yeah,
as a country, withhold our taxes when we felt our government was stepping out of line, you would see a lot of changes within our government. A lot of changes.
in a very short period.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you cut off access to the purse, now they don't have any way to fund the things that they're misspending the money on.
Now,
And that's important.
we pay taxes literally under the threat of violence.
Right. Even more so now,
Mm-hmm.
now that the IRS agents are armed.
Well,
with more
even
than just
before. Okay.
With more than just adding
put
machines.
In prison or in jail is a form of violence.
Violence. Yeah.
Okay, regardless of whether they use guns to do it or not.
Yeah, because it can destroy your life. It takes away your livelihood. It takes away your purpose. Yeah.
Incarceration is a form of violence. Okay. The taking of property is a form of violence.
Yep.
Okay. And one of the tools that IRS uses and local governments uses is the seizing of property when you fail to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Okay. And those are things, like I said, okay, our premise was we have the right to redress government again for grievances.
Right.
Well, the most effective redress of grievances is the withholding of tax funds. And we are not allowed to do that. So that in and of itself puts the current form of taxation as being unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Okay. Congress has the right to implement taxes. Don't deny that at all. Congress also has the ability to enforce the payment of those taxes.
Yep.
However, we have the right to object to those taxes when that money is being used for unconstitutional purposes.
Right.
And that's where our redress of grievances is.
Mm-hmm.
That's where, if it was a truly constitutional manner of taxation, where we could voluntarily withhold our taxes, face a court.
Right.
Because
With due
you don't even
process.
get that opportunity 9
No.
times out of 10.
No, it's all handled administratively through the bureaucracy. Right.
If we actually were able to go to court to justify our reason, okay, and when I mean go to court, I mean in a trial by a jury of our peers.
Yeah.
Not an administrative court.
Correct.
Which we all have the right to for any action that is the equivalent of $20 or more. And taxes are definitely that.
Yeah.
Okay. That is my basis on why the IRS and the current tax code and tax structure is unconstitutional. And that doesn't even go into why I think the 16th Amendment is flawed as well.
Right. No, I've been saying the same thing since the beginning of the year, at least on this show. I've been saying it for longer that we need to retain that right. We need to reaffirm that right for ourselves to voluntarily withhold taxes so that we can go through the due process
Mm-hmm.
and that we can actually challenge these things in court.
But we don't get that opportunity at all.
No, we don't. And that to me just shows that we are one step closer to authoritarianism that the founders warned us about,
Mm-hmm.
but we're hoping that we wouldn't fall into.
Right.
So
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can say is, as far as a remedy goes, is that we really need to do a lot of soul searching this year. So the audience, to the audience, I appeal to you as the audience to share this message out. Get people thinking. Discuss it with your folks at work. Discuss it with your neighbors. Whenever you have the opportunity, and they may not want to hear it, and that's fine. They don't have to. But at least bring it up so they start thinking about it, and it's somewhere in the forefront of their mind. Like, oh yeah, the other day I just had a discussion with my neighbor about it. And I really don't like the way things are going, because one of the biggest problems that we're seeing is that people do not have the information of what to do. They know there's something wrong. They can feel it. They're feeling the pain, but they don't know what they can do about it. Well, what you can do about it is educate yourself. Talk to people. Get them to think about these things and be like, look, did you know that we even have the right to voluntarily withhold taxes so long as you're willing to go through the due process? Most people don't. They don't even think about it.
I'm going to show you something right now. Okay.
And some of it's comfort too. Like, people know, some people will know, but they don't want to have to go through the hassle of fighting for it.
Currently, President Biden's job approval rating is 50%, 7% of the nation disapprove of
His
Joe
job.
Biden's job as president.
Yeah.
57%. Okay. If we look at the direction of the country, let's see if that comes up in this poll down further. No, let's go to the direction of the country. If we can get this to come up. Okay. So 67.4% of the United States thinks that the country is on the wrong track.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an insignificant number.
No.
That's
No, that
over
translates to millions of
2/3
people.
the United States believe that the United States is on the wrong track. Okay. I'm looking up the congressional approval rating because it's abysmal as well.
Yeah, Congress has been useless this year, and it's not just because of the fight over the speakership.
Okay. So, on a Gallup poll, okay, right now, and let me share this so people can see what I'm talking about. Okay. Our highest approval rating since 1976 was 84%. And that happened in October of 2001. Okay. Our current, as of June 3rd, between June 3rd and June 23rd of 2024, the approval rate of Congress was a 79% disapproval.
Mhm.
rating. Only 16% of America approved with the way Congress was doing its job. Okay, and we can look clear back to May of 2022. The highest approval rating that Congress had was 20%, 23%.
That's abysmal.
Okay, that's less than a quarter of America approves of the way Congress is doing its job.
And yet they keep and yet they keep getting the public to vote in the same idiots.
And that's what I was just getting ready to say. But yet, term after term after term after term, we keep reelecting these people. I think last election, Michael talks about it all the time. 86% of incumbents were reelected to office.
Because
86%.
right, because only about 40% of the people turn out to vote. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that people see periods where Congress isn't doing well.
Well, even when we do have extremely high turnouts, we still re-elect an extremely high amount of incumbents. Even though we disagree with everything they're doing, we re-elect them.
But my point was, you see the people turn out to vote, right? Yet the incumbents still get reelected.
Mm-hmm.
After everything that we've seen from 2022 and 2020, how much of that is voter apathy and how much of that is people not trusting the outcome of their elections?
Well, I think a big part of it is people not trusting the outcome of the election. Another big part is people don't get involved prior to the election.
Right.
So we end up having to make a choice each and every election of which is the lesser of two evils.
Instead of which is the better candidate for the job.
Right.
Right.
Okay. And we are faced with this coming up election. Okay. And I guarantee you go out and you poll people, they are choosing the candidate that they not so much, they're choosing the candidate because they dislike the other one so much.
Yeah. Because they're voting on feeling. They're not voting on logic. Reason.
Well, it's not even that. Okay. It's again, because they don't have good choices.
Okay.
They are choosing the candidate.
I'm sending something because I don't know how to pull stuff up and do all this screen share and everything. I'm sending something that I saw posted in one of my groups to the chat.
Okay.
Pull it up. Let's listen to it and tell me what you guys think about this.
All right.
What chat did you put it in, Jan?
Our chat.
Well, the private one?
Oh no! Wait a minute.
Or the messenger chat.
Should be the messenger chat.
There it is.
And it's telling me to join the group.
It says it's hidden because the right side is a group, a private group.
Did it pop up?
It did, but you might have to click. Well, I'd say you'd have to click on it and then use the present button to do it when it pops up.
I thought this was interesting. I did. Makes
Okay,
a lot of
and if you want to post this, okay, down at the bottom of the screen, in the middle, it says present.
Uh-huh.
Okay, click on it.
Yeah, but this is on my phone, not on the computer. What I'm posting,
you're on your phone?
Yeah, what
Okay.
I'm posting from is on my phone.
Okay.
All right. Can you give us a quick recap? Like just a synopsis?
Yeah, because we can't put it up.
It's basically a guy that's talking about the way to fix Congress, and he talks about instead of paying Congress a salary, they get the salary of what their state's median average salary is.
Hmm.
That
Yeah, I've
why
heard
do
that
we have
floated
to
around.
pay for them to fly from their state to Washington for a vote when we have all this Zoom and everything else going on right now?
Right.
Yeah.
You could do a lot of it by remote.
They
Yeah.
can do a lot of it by
Well,
remote.
and that's
Um,
my argument as to why we should be expanding our representation in the House, at minimum in the House. Okay, and you guys have heard me on these broadcasts that I've talked about the original First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Okay, the First Amendment, the original First Amendment or Bill of the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Which talks about representation.
Yeah.
Okay, and some sources claim that that was actually ratified, and that for some reason it didn't get included when the others were ratified, because of this whatever reason. Okay, there's multiple websites talking about it. So the original First Amendment, because we always claim that the First Amendment is the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly,
Right.
freedom of the press, and the right to redress grievances,
Mhm.
freedom to redress grievances. Okay,
Right.
those are the 5 premises of the First Amendment. That was not the original First Amendment.
Huh.
Okay.
Never heard of that.
The original First Amendment, because there's 12 amendments that were originally sent to the states for ratification.
Okay.
One was ratified in 1992. One of those 12 was ratified in 1992 because it was classified as one of the Lost Amendments. It is the 27th Amendment.
Okay.
Okay, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it actually has to do with pay of, okay, let's get down here to it.
well, when you guys do get a chance, look at that video.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Okay, so the 27th Amendment and this was originally the second amendment in the Bill of Rights. Okay. No law varying the compensation for services of the senators or representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. So, in other words, the current session of Congress,
Right.
if it passed a pay raise for Congress, that cannot take effect until after the 2024 election.
So essentially, the incoming government for 2025 would have to ratify the pay raise.
Right.
Right.
Well, I don't think they should be voting for raises for themselves, period.
I don't either, but you know what? That would make sense in essence, because if one party is in control of the House and they decide to give themselves an astronomical pay raise, then the following government, like the following Congress, could look at that and be like, no, that's way too much. Like we can't be spending that kind of money, and then they would be able to nix that if people that were not incumbents were in there. I mean, that's the thing, is if 86% of all people that are elected back to their positions, they're going to give themselves the raise anyway, because the next Congress they come into is the same Congress that they left. Maybe changing 1 or 2 people, but not enough to actually change the result of the raise.
Mhm.
Now, personally, I have never known an employee of any government or any corporation or any business that was able to vote themselves a raise. Not a one.
Right.
Well,
So
I know all the years I worked, I never got to vote myself a raise.
no, so I would say that maybe if they wanted a raise, they'd have to appeal to the American people and possibly put it as a general referendum on the ballot. Do you think we're doing a good enough job to warrant a raise, given everything that's happened? And I can almost guarantee you that it would be no. The only way the American people would ever vote their representatives a raise is if things were really good. You were able to pay all your bills, your debts were at minimum, you were able to, support your family and have more than enough left over. And then Americans, being generous, would say, hey, you know what? You guys did a really good job. There's your raise. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
But
then
not-
it also goes back to taxes too, because
Yeah, they don't pay
myself
taxes
and
on the
my
salary.
household, I can't go to the debt company and say, raise my debt limit, please.
Yeah,
I need more debt.
Yeah.
Well, we can get around a lot of this. Okay. What I have up on the screen, for those of you that can't see it, this is from the National Archives.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this is a transcript.
Okay.
Okay, Congress of the United States begun and held at the city of New York on Wednesday, the 4th of March, 1789. The conventions of a number of states having the time for their adopting the Constitution expressed a desire, in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, the further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added, and as an extending to the ground of the public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent
Beneficence. Yeah.
ends of this institution, and resolved. And then they sent in these. Okay, now these, when they are sent to the states, were classified as Article the First, Article the Second, Article the Third, Article the Fourth, and so on up to Article the 12th.
Right.
Now, there is no question that Articles 3 through 12 were ratified.
Right.
There are several questions. Number one, okay, Article the Second was officially ratified in 1992. There was controversy as to whether or not that one had also been ratified by the states at the same time.
Right.
And it kind of makes sense that all 12 of these would have been ratified, but they were ratified at slightly different times as they were discussed
Right.
by various Congresses. And this is the common theory behind this, that the first two articles were ratified later because they had longer discussions, that the 3 through 12, they didn't have to discuss that long, but Article First and Article Second had more discussion in their various legislatures. Article the First, which would have been the original First Amendment, reads: after the first enumeration required by the first article of the Constitution, there shall be one representative for every 30,000 until number shall amount to 100. After which the proportion shall be so regulated by Congress that there shall be not less than 100 representatives, nor less than one representative for every 40,000 persons, until the number of representatives amount to 200. After which the proportion shall be so regulated by Congress that there shall be not less than 200 representatives, nor more than one representative for every 50,000 persons.
So as the population climbs, so too does the singular representative.
Right.
Right.
And
Okay.
when it stopped at 200, it was supposed to stop at 50,000. So for every 50,000 people in the United States, there was a requirement for one representative to represent those 50,000 people.
Right. And now that we're in the hundreds of millions, 369 representatives isn't going to cut it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
439.
Well,
Or actually 438.
is that before or after they decided to kick out a number of them?
Okay. Now, this would have obviously progressed out if this would have been adopted. And this is one of the reasons why there's a lot of controversy on this
Right.
amendment as well, is that this would have led to an astronomical number of representatives. Okay. Case in point, you take 330 million people, divide that by 50,000.
50,000.
That's a lot of representatives.
But you know what that also is? That's a lot of division of power,
Mhm.
which means it would be harder to pass a whole bunch of stuff.
Exactly.
Right. No one gets rich if that's the case.
Well, here's
That's
the
how that
thing.
works.
Okay. Right now, at our current number of 438 representatives in the House,
Right.
okay, how easy is it for a billionaire to be able to buy off all 438 of those seats?
It's probably improbable, but doable, especially if you're talking about multinational corporations that would bound together to lobby.
Well, okay, let's say, right? Let's say that they used $100 million
Okay.
times 438.
hmm
That's only $4.38 billion.
Right.
Okay,
and it's
that's not that
happening.
astronomical number.
It's happening. So, I mean, the
That's
argument
not
is
okay.
mute.
And they wouldn't even need all
Right.
438. They only need half.
Right. I mean, that's why I said it was improbable. It's not impossible. It's improbable that they would buy off everybody because the not everybody is going to hold the same amount of influence among the representatives. They still follow human nature as far as seniority goes, as far as who's on what committee that holds more influence than another. So they don't need all of the representatives to buy them off. So the amount of money that they would spend could be significantly less and still get the same result. But no matter which way you cut it, if we were to have if Article 1, like you just pointed out, gave us the number of representatives that we would have required for Article 1, that would have been nigh on impossible. Because the committees would be too large, the number of representatives would be too large, they'd be spending way more money than what they actually had to get any sort of benefit out of it.
Now, how hard would it be, okay, if we carried this out to its end? It would have been
Right.
6,600 representatives.
Okay.
Okay, in the House of
That's a
Representatives.
lot.
Then it would still remain as it is because this was only for the House.
Right.
How hard would it be to buy off 3,300 representatives?
It's still $100 million. All
Yeah,
right. So that would be what?
that'd be almost $3 trillion.
$3 trillion. Yeah. That would be a tenth of our national debt.
Right.
Just to put that into perspective for people, that's a tenth of our national debt. Which still is an achievable number. let's not forget that we still could make you have corporations out there that command a budget that's larger than most countries. So if they could make a profit, if they thought they could make a profit that would
Now,
quadruple that, then yeah, they could still
if
feasibly do it.
you're only relying on 50,000 volts,
Right.
okay, number one, odds are people are going to know who the hell you are.
Yeah.
Okay, pretty intimately.
Yep.
Okay, because you're going to come from that area,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And if you don't do what those 50,000 how people want, you're not getting reelected.
No.
Okay. It's a lot easier to get reelected when you represent almost 1 million people compared to when you only represent 50,000.
Right. Because those 50,000, you probably live in the area of those 50,000. Your neighbors would show up at your house and be like, "Hey, we sent you to represent us, and you didn't do what we wanted."
Right.
You know,
Number two,
you're going to be persona non grata in the local coffee house for that.
well, you got that. But you also have another caveat in this,
What's that?
right? If you have 50,000 people that you're representing,
Hmm.
it's a lot easier for those 50,000 people to tell you what they want. When you're representing over
True.
1 million people, it's a hell of a lot harder to figure out what people want.
Hmm.
Okay. And so as a result, when you've got that many representatives in the House, special interest groups have a very hard time exerting their power.
Yeah.
Okay. Where when you have a very limited number, 438, it's very easy for a special interest group to exert its power.
True.
Well, guys, we're going on almost 3 hours here, so
We are. Okay. And we got into some discussions after our main topics that kind of expanded things on. Folks, this is what we do. Okay. We have discussions about this. And a lot of it is the need of people to be involved in their governance.
Yep.
And if you don't want to be directly involved, be involved in an organization that is directly involved, whether it be through the Liberty First Foundation or some other constitutionally based organization.
Yeah.
Get involved with them because they are the ones that are actually trying to reestablish our foundation, the foundation that made this country great, and that is the Constitution. Okay. It's not an antiquated document.
No.
It is a document that has stood the test of time. And the biggest reason why our Congress and our government wants to do away with the Constitution is because it restricts them.
Yep.
It gives power to the people. They don't like that. They want the power for themselves. Well, folks, if we don't exercise our power, which is inherent in that Constitution, we have failed.
Yep.
And we can only do it when we act together as one country, united in our efforts to restore a government back to what we want, not what they deem us to have. We're here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to thank Dal and Jan for joining us tonight. Thank you, Michael, for popping in and giving us an update on what's going on at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I also want to thank Frank for being on here earlier. We discussed a lot of things tonight, folks, but I want you to really go forward this week and think about what your rights and obligations are to this country. Okay? What are your inherent rights and what are your obligations to this country? And if you need some help with that, I urge you to read the Constitution of the United States. That is your starting point. Then when you go through that, start reading the Constitution for your state. Okay? Know these documents, because if you don't know them, then government can tell you they have the authority to do this to you when they really don't. We'll see y'all next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.